Hey Dragon Slayers! Today's video is about fatty liver, fructose, and their connection to insulin resistance. We discussed the role of insulin resistance in causing dyslipidemia earlier. Insulin unfavorably changes cholesterol in the blood. Hyperlipidemia, on the other hand, means that the blood has too much fat in general, often carried on lipoproteins, LDL cholesterol, and its precursor, VLDL cholesterol. When the liver produces fat from any source, it commonly produces a saturated fat called palmitic acid. This isn't benign. Increased saturated fat in the blood is potentially pathological, increasing inflammation and cardiovascular complications, and exacerbating insulin resistance. And importantly, this can happen when a person eats absolutely no fat. Saturated fat in the blood is not analogous to saturated fat in the diet. We'll revisit this point later on. Let's look at non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Instead of secreting fat into the blood, the liver can store it. If the liver stores too much fat, it will start to lose functionality and may develop more serious complications. For the liver, too much fat is defined as 5 to 10% of its total weight consisting of fat. Historically, developing a fatty liver was seen almost exclusively with excess alcohol consumption. No other tissue can metabolize alcohol, and over time, drinking too much led to fat buildup in your liver cells, known as alcoholic fatty liver disease. However, you can get fatty liver disease even if you don't drink. And in recent decades, we've seen a shift. Roughly 1 in 3 people in the United States has non alcoholic fatty liver disease. The number increases every year and is likely more prevalent than we think, considering that diseases like this are clinically silent in its early stage. This is utterly remarkable. A disease that was practically unheard of 30 years ago is now the most common liver disorder in Western countries, and it has so much to do with insulin resistance. So let's take a look at fructose and its effect on the liver. Fructose is similar to alcohol, but without the hangover. With the two, what the two have in common is where they're handled. Both are metabolized by the liver. Unfortunately, the liver has very limited options for metabolizing fructose and alcohol. Much of what isn't used for energy production is converted to fat. Indeed, just as alcohol causes alcoholic fatty liver disease, high fructose consumption is a potent contributor to non alcoholic fatty liver disease. Fructose is so good at making the liver fat that just 1 week of eating high fructose foods is enough to make the liver observably fatter. A phenomenal study published in 2009 explored the effect of fructose versus glucose on visceral fat. The subjects received drinks containing either fructose or glucose. Unsurprisingly, all the subjects gained fat. However, detail an interesting detail was that where the fat accumulated. While the glucose drinkers developed more subcutaneous fat, the fructose drinkers, you guessed it, developed more visceral fat. Tragically, we consume several times more fructose now than we did a generation ago. And other than sugar, which is half fructose, the culprit is largely our love of fruit juices. Many of us consider it a healthy drink, but all fruit juice is a potent source of pure fructose. Unfortunately, our misunderstanding is a significant part of why non alcoholic fatty liver disease is on the rise in children as well as adults. Hopefully, this prompts you to think twice before drinking that cup of apple juice, let alone giving it to your kids. This is not, however, a call to avoid fruit. Because of its fiber content and relatively low fructose, Whole fruit is very different from fruit juice. In fact, eating whole fruit is better for improving diabetes risk than drinking juice from the same fruit. So, eat your fruit, don't drink it. When you look at the microbrewery in your belly, you can imagine a situation where you drink no alcohol, yet you develop actual alcoholic fatty liver disease. This is what happened to a man in China where scientists stumbled onto the realization that their sober minded subject wasn't so sober. He had chronically elevated blood alcohol despite not drinking any. Remarkably, the man had a high level of a certain intestinal bacteria that ferments glucose to produce high levels of alcohol, which contributed to him developing fatty liver disease. And he's not alone. In this study, they found that up to 60% of people with fatty liver disease had the same bacteria. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. And remember, guys, that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.